You ever heard of the sunk cost fallacy? It's basically just throwing good money after bad. And the producers of these shows learned about it the hard way. No amount of money could save these giant flops.
Most people today know Battlestar Galactica as the marathon-worthy sci-fi series that ran from 2003 to 2009. Hardcore fans, however, might remember that the series originated in 1978 and tanked in the ratings a year later. Setting out to be a TV take on Star Wars, the original Galactica cost roughly $1 million per episode, more than double that of a typical primetime show at the time, and the equivalent of over $3.7 million today. At first, it was worth the price tag. The series' early episodes attracted positive reviews and healthy ratings, but those ratings eventually began to slip, and behind-the-scenes issues like censorship made production difficult. Ultimately, Battlestar Galactica couldn't pull its weight as compared to other less expensive network hits, such as ABC's own Mork and Mindy, and the show was canceled after a single season. The network did give it another go with Galactica 1980, but that show only lasted 10 episodes before being decommissioned due to non-existent viewers. When it comes to expensive flops, you'd be hard-pressed to find a bigger train wreck than 1979's Supertrain. As you might expect from the title, the NBC show was basically just Love Boat meets Snowpiercer, set on a massive nuclear-powered locomotive featuring its own nightclubs and casinos that could speed from New York to Los Angeles at 200 miles per hour. The thing is, the train didn't actually exist, so the show's creators used expensive model trains while filming. Unfortunately, the models weren't particularly durable, and one of them was destroyed in a crash before the first episode was even filmed. After the show debuted to downright terrible ratings, famous celebrities were brought on to keep Supertrain on track. Tony Danza, Rue McClanahan, and Dick Van Dyke all made guest appearances. But even that late 70s star power couldn't stop Supertrain from going off the rails. The show was canceled after 9 episodes and remains one of NBC's costliest flops to date at a reported $4 million an episode. It makes a lot of sense that after Shrek raked it in at the box office, NBC was willing to fork over big bucks to DreamWorks for a computer-animated show of their own. It makes a lot less sense that they decided that the project that would be worth $2.5 million of their money would be a show that recast the White Lions from Siegfried and Roy's famous Las Vegas Magic Act as a wacky sitcom family. The result was Father of the Pride. Unlike Shrek, which somehow spawned an unstoppable franchise that we just can't seem to get rid of, it failed to capture the hearts and minds of those who watched it. It did, however, capture plenty of unwanted attention. The Parents Television Council flooded the FCC with allegations that Father of the Pride was indecent. To make matters worse, the show came in hot on the heels of Roy being nearly mauled to death when one of his tigers dragged him off stage by the neck, the first such accident in more than 5,000 shows. With all that stacked against it, it didn't take long for NBC to make the show disappear after only 13 episodes. When some shows get canceled, they leave viewers feeling like they missed out on something good that never got a chance to shine. When CBS dropped the hammer on 2007's Viva Laughlin, however, it was a mercy killing that freed the audience from what the New York Times suggested might be the worst show in the history of television. Made in an effort to diverge from the standard lineup of police procedurals and grandparent-focused sitcoms, CBS banked big on a remake of Viva Blackpool, a popular BBC show with a bizarre premise, a murder mystery that would occasionally break out into elaborate musical numbers where the cast sang pop songs. Despite the presence of producer and star Hugh Jackman, critics and viewers alike hated the casino-themed musical from the opening number. Its ratings were dismal, and it quickly became a go-to punchline on the E! Network's The Soup as a show beloved by hundreds, which might have been overstating it. After only 2 episodes, Viva Laughlin danced its way off airwaves. And with the pilot purportedly costing $6.8 million, cutting losses early was probably the right call. As the first series ordered under Chris Albrecht, the newly crowned president and CEO of Starz, hopes were riding high on 2011's Arthurian drama, Camelot. According to Albrecht, the show was based on, quote, an idea of hope that has resonated at different times throughout history. Unfortunately, 2011 was not one of those times. Critical reviews of Camelot were less than stellar. But while the show still saw solid ratings during its final episodes, Starz canceled the fantasy drama after only 1 season. Scheduling conflicts with lead cast members Joseph Fiennes, Jamie Campbell Bower, and Ava Green made a sophomore effort more trouble than it was worth. And it was worth quite a lot. According to the Wall Street Journal, the series cost roughly $7 million per episode. That's a lance a lot of money, huh? Look, you can't blame us for trying that one. Betting on the star power of Deadwood's Ian McShane, the writing prowess of American Gods' Michael Green, and some assistance from the Hunger Games Catching Fire director Francis Lawrence, NBC seemed poised to hit it big with 2009's Kings, an ambitious drama reimagining the life of the biblical King David in a modern setting. The 2-hour premiere cost a massive $10 million, with each subsequent episode coming in at $4 million a pop. With that kind of money behind a television series, you better believe the stakes were high. In this case, producers rolled snake eyes and cashed out with dismal ratings. But Kings wasn't just costly for NBC. Liberty Mutual invested a $5 million sponsorship into the show, reportedly aiming to subconsciously piggyback on the show's message of personal responsibility to encourage viewers to buy insurance. With barely anyone watching the show, however, it's safe to assume Liberty Mutual didn't exactly get what it paid for. Kings was first banished to the dog days of summer before NBC officially called it quits. Still, the show isn't as bad as its ratings imply, and it might be worth going back if you missed it the first time around. Netflix is no stranger to dropping big money on big projects, but in the case of 2014's Marco Polo, the series never really found its way to an audience and wound up losing big in the process. At the time of Marco Polo's release, no active series was more expensive to produce, except HBO's fantasy juggernaut Game of Thrones. The first season of Netflix's Kublai Khan-centered drama cost a staggering $90 million, which weighs in at $9 million per episode. Unfortunately for Netflix, Marco Polo never came close to Game of Thrones' success. Despite lackluster critical reviews, Netflix gave Marco Polo a second season. The sophomore effort was less popular than the first, prompting the streaming service to give the series the axe. In this case, a 13th century Mongol axe.
Developed by Lana and Lily Wachowski along with Babylon 5 creator J. Michael Straczynski, Sense8 premiered on Netflix in 2015. The show follows a group of people from around the world who inexplicably gain the ability to psychically link with each other. Before they know it, they're being menaced by a secret organization, apparently led by an enigmatic individual known as Whispers. Sense8 received positive reviews from both critics and viewers and won a number of awards. But that didn't stop Netflix from cancelling the show at the end of Season 2. An outcry from fans led to the streaming giant producing a final 2.5-hour-long finale to tie up the story and ensure it didn't end on a cliffhanger. Variety reported that Ted Sarandos, chief content officer for Netflix at the time, confirmed the show was simply proving to be too expensive considering its small audience. While the company doesn't generally release information about budgets and viewing figures, the fact that it cost around $9 million per episode was seemingly too much for Netflix to justify. Most of that cost came down to the long production time, and the fact that it was filmed on location around the world. Netflix is no stranger to canceling high-profile shows if they don't live up to the company's expectations, which could mean they haven't managed to attract enough viewers. It shouldn't come as a huge surprise that The Get Down was axed after just a single season, despite rave reviews and numerous award nominations. Created by director Baz Luhrmann and Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright Stephen Adly Guirgis, the 2016 musical drama focuses on a group of teenagers living in the South Bronx of New York during the 1970s. Netflix announced that The Get Down would not be returning to the streaming service in 2017, having already cut down the first season from 13 episodes to 11. This was largely a result of costly production delays and the mid-season departure of showrunner Sean Ryan. According to Variety, research suggested that the show received just a fraction of the viewers as other Netflix originals, and interest appeared to drop off quickly. Considering the first season apparently cost around $120 million, it's little wonder that Netflix did not want to commit to more episodes.
What'd you think? You were just gonna keep running this thing without my knowledge?
Information regarding the Mountain Estranca facility has always been on a need-to-know basis.
The event is an NBC sci-fi thriller series that first hit television screens in 2010 and ran for a single season before it was unceremoniously shelved after just 22 episodes. The story focuses on a group of extraterrestrials who crash land on Earth in a remote region of Alaska during World War II. Those on board the unidentified craft are taken prisoner and held in captivity by the United States. Although many survivors evade capture and manage to hide among the human population, when a new president takes office, he plans to free the aliens and reveal their existence to the world. but is quickly caught up in an assassination attempt. Even though the event had a strong start when it was first broadcast, it quickly began to lose viewers. The series also failed to impress critics, making it a likely contender for cancellation. While an exact budget has never been revealed, The Hollywood Reporter indicated that NBC spent at least $10 million marketing the event, suggesting that it was a big-budget undertaking. When most people think of The Fugitive, they'd likely picture the 1993 film starring Harrison Ford and Tommy Lee Jones. Dr. Richard Kimball is framed for the murder of his wife and sentenced to death for killing her. He's inadvertently freed, however, while being transported to prison, and sets out to find the actual culprit while being pursued by US Marshals. There have been multiple versions of the story over the years, dating back to the original 1960s television series. In 2000, CBS launched a remake of the earlier show, also titled The Fugitive, with Tim Daly portraying Kimball and Michael T. Williamson as a US Marshal trying to apprehend him. It was cancelled after one season, ending on a cliffhanger. The Post-Gazette reported that the pilot alone cost an estimated $6 million to produce, a rather large figure for 2000. According to The Hollywood Reporter, drama pilots cost $5 million on average in 2007, suggesting that The Fugitive was certainly on the high scale for a television series. Although it is not part of the official canon of the Star Wars universe, the Star Wars Holiday Special came out not long after the first film and is set between A New Hope and The Empire Strikes Back. It centers on Chewbacca and Han Solo's attempt to visit the planet Kashyyyk, while being pursued by Imperial forces and bounty hunter Boba Fett. The $1 million budget, which was around 10% of the total cost of A New Hope, is equivalent to more than $4.5 million today. So the special was certainly an expensive production. The show was universally panned by almost everyone who has seen it. Even those who worked on the project, including cast members such as Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and Harrison Ford, have been critical of the project and how it turned out.
Do you remember making this Christmas special? I think it was 1978. No, you don't remember it?
Star Wars creator and director George Lucas has even remarked that he wants to destroy every copy of the special that is still available. Starring Natalie Martinez, Kate Bosworth, Kyle Schmid, and Sibylla Dean, The Island is a Netflix sci-fi thriller that tracks 10 strangers who wake up on a beach without any idea how they got there or knowledge about their own identities. Conflict soon breaks out, and it is later revealed that this is a digital simulation meant to test whether violent criminals will return to the way they once behaved under all new circumstances. After its premiere, The Island was universally criticized. It holds a critics' rating of just 8% on Rotten Tomatoes and a similarly bad audience score, suggesting that very few people enjoyed anything about it. In its review of the series, Pace criticized its absurdity and called it an embarrassment. The writer stated, "I have watched some truly bad series in my day, but few that went off the rails this hard, this fast." Considering that The Island cost approximately $14 million for a limited series of just 7 40-minute episodes, few could argue this was a good investment. 2018's Troy Fall of a City was a co-production with Netflix and the BBC. Set during the mythological age of ancient Greece, the show charts a Trojan invasion after Paris, played by Louis Hunter, flees Sparta with Bellardane's Helen of Troy. This prompts a war between the two nations as Achilles and the other Greeks attempt to take back Helen. Despite positive reviews, Troy Fall of a City mostly failed to attract viewers. It managed just 3.2 million audience members for its opening episode, almost 2 million less than a typical Saturday evening primetime slot. A few episodes later, this number had dropped to just 1.6 million in total, a dramatic fall for an expensive show. According to The Times, the series cost almost $2.5 million an episode, putting it at a total cost of $20 million for its 8-episode first season. This made it one of the BBC's most expensive dramas ever made. An adaptation of Channel 4's 2013 series of the same name, Utopia is a 2020 Amazon Prime Video series that was created by Gone Girl writer Gillian Flynn. Starring John Cusack, Rainn Wilson, Sasha Lane, and Desmond Borges, the premise of the show is that a group of young adults discover a cult comic book and become aware of its connection to a vast global conspiracy. Armed with this knowledge, they set out to save the world, but also become targets for a secretive underground organization. Amazon canceled the series after a single 8-episode season. Utopia was originally set to be produced by HBO, but the show was shelved following a dispute over the budget. According to rumors reported by Deadline, director David Fincher wanted more than $100 million to shoot the series, but executives at HBO were unwilling to offer more than $95 million. Although the series found a new home with Amazon, in light of COVID-19's all-encompassing impact on the real world of 2020, it's safe to say the TV viewing public of the era was uniquely disinterested in an escapist sci-fi fantasy program about a deadly global pandemic. Cop Rock was created by Steven Bochco, the man responsible for the hit crime drama Hill Street Blues. But Cop Rock takes the concept of a typical police procedural and blends in musical elements. As the various detectives and police officers in the LAPD carry out their work, a number of choreographed musical numbers push the story forward and provide extra context to viewers.
There's going to be singing and dancing.
About police?
Yeah, about police.
As a highly experimental concept, Cop Rock was always likely to face an uphill battle, and the show was cancelled after just 11 episodes of the planned 13 that were due to make up Season 1. Reports from the time suggest that the series failed to attract a large enough audience and had average reviews. The New York Times revealed that Cop Rock also had a large budget, roughly 40% larger than equivalent shows in its time slot, and was costing more than $1 million per week. The Playboy Club is a 2011 NBC series set during the 1960s that follows the action around the first Playboy Club in Chicago. The show stars Eddie Cibrian, a shady lawyer, Nick Dalton, and Amber Heard as a new employee at the club with a closet full of skeletons. Controversial from the moment that it first hit television screens, the Playboy Club did not prove to be a hit with critics or viewers. The series struggled in the ratings, losing millions of viewers between the first and third episodes, prompting NBC to cancel the show mid-season. Showrunner Chad Hodge confirmed that the Playboy Club had 4 completed episodes that remain unaired, despite the series costing NBC at least $2 million an episode. Friends was one of the biggest shows of the 90s. When it finally came to an end in 2004 after 10 seasons, it made perfect sense that NBC would want to continue its success in some way with a spin-off. The new series, which made its debut near the end of 2004 and was titled simply Joey, focused entirely on Matt LeBlanc's character, Joey Tribbiani, who moves to Hollywood to try and make it as a movie actor. The concept made sense, but the execution left a lot to be desired. Kevin Bright, one of the original Friends producers, believed that NBC had disregarded his ideas for the spin-off and made the show less fun than it should have been. Ratings plummeted from the first episode onward, and NBC chose to cancel the series midway through its season 2. Although official figures about the costs of making Joey have never been detailed, UK Channel 5 was paying as much as £500,000 for each episode, a staggering 5 times more than the usual license fee. Meanwhile, LeBlanc claims that he earned $30 million for his role in the spin-off. Based on the 2013 book The Good Girls Revolt by Lynn Povich, Good Girls Revolt tells the story of a group of female writers at a news magazine who find themselves subjected to absurd amounts of sexism. Genevieve Angelson, Anna Camp, Erin Dark, and Hunter Parrish were part of the main cast, and the show was sometimes compared to the highly acclaimed Mad Men by critics and fans alike. Unfortunately, the high quality didn't translate into viewers, with Reuters revealing that only 1.6 million tuned in. With a budget in the region of $80 million, it is little wonder that Amazon chose not to renew for Season 2. A collaboration between Martin Scorsese, Terrence Winter, and Mick Jagger, Vinyl is a 2016 HBO series that focuses on the music scene in New York during the 1970s. As the tastes of the population shift from rock to disco and hip-hop music, a record company executive does his best to stay relevant in the shifting marketplace. Bobby Cannavale, Arto Esando, Jack Quaid, and Ray Romano had starring roles, while Scorsese himself executive produced and directed the 2-hour-long pilot.
Do you have any idea how huge that is?
Before episode 1 even hit TV screens, HBO had given the green light for season 2, but the network quickly reversed course. Only months after the show's first season finale aired, HBO confirmed that Vinyl had instead been cancelled as it failed to land. Costing $100 million for the first season, that accounts to $10 million per episode. It was one of HBO's most expensive projects, but also failed to find an audience and managed less than 1 million viewers on average. Scorsese, however, believes that the series could have been more successful if he had directed all the episodes and devoted more time to it. Despite plenty of criticism about its final season, Game of Thrones was such a hit that HBO was always likely to continue the franchise in some way. Fans eventually got more Westeros with the popular spin-off series House of the Dragon, but long before that, another project was in the works. Known by its production name Bloodmoon, this show was set to take place thousands of years before the events of Game of Thrones. HBO officially greenlit a pilot for the series in 2018, and cast actors such as Naomi Watts in key roles. With a budget of $30 million, the Bloodmoon pilot cost more than the $15 million spent on each episode of the final season of Game of Thrones. Meanwhile, Deadline reported that there were long delays and production issues throughout the filming of the pilot, including a complete re-edit when HBO executives were unconvinced after seeing the first cut. HBO pulled the plug shortly after and locked the pilot away so that no one would ever get to see it.